Welcome to the Shadow of History channel. Be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out more videos like this one. A soldier's quick glance becomes a lifetime decision as, in Berlin, 1961, he lifts a small boy toward freedom, letting courage slip through concrete and wire, and the wall learns, briefly, it cannot hold love. A child is hoisted high like a living postcard as West Berlin families, 1961, press close to the barrier, letting grandparents in the East drink in familiar faces, and every smile becomes a quiet rebellion. A runaway chimp turns a city street into a stage as the zoo director inches closer in Belgrade, Yugoslavia, 1988, bargaining with fruit and patience until trust lands softly and the crowd exhales together. A crisp salute cuts through the harbor air as sailors in Leningrad, 1989, honor a weathered veteran, and for one steady beat, the past and present lock eyes, proving gratitude can still stand tall. A frontier morning feels intimate and vast as guide Samson Beaver, Leah, and young Francis Louise pose with quiet pride in 1907 stony First Nation country, and the camera preserves a family's strength like stone. A roar of water falls silent in the mind as Niagara, in 1883, appears frozen mid-thunder, turning nature's wild pulse into sculpture and reminding us that even the fiercest forest can pause without surrender. A sharp tap on glass starts the day's first heartbeat as a London knocker-up works the streets in 1929, trading sleep for responsibility and proving society once ran on human hands and punctual faith. Three women stand like a living timeline outside a stone cottage in Ireland, 1927. Their faces carrying hardship, humor, and hope, and the doorway behind them feels like a threshold between centuries. 2 million bodies become one long sentence on August 23, 1989, as Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania join hands across 600 kilometers, and the world witnesses freedom written not in ink, but in people. A surprising stitch holds the future of exploration as Playtex, better known for bras, shapes the spacesuits of Armstrong and Aldrin, and suddenly the moon feels closer, built from everyday craft and daring design. A small child in a dress challenges modern assumptions as families in the 1910s follow tradition until age 5 or 6. And the photograph whispers that culture changes faster than memory admits. Hollow-eyed survivors stare into a new world in 1945, Jewish prisoners freed from a death train, and the air around them feels heavy with names unspoken as liberation arrives late but refuses to be ignored. Joy erupts like sunlight after a long blackout as Dutch resistance members celebrate Hitler's death in April 1945. And for a moment, the streets breathe again, daring to imagine tomorrow without fear. A voice becomes a hammer against chains as Frederick Douglass rises from slavery to orator and leader, turning pain into purpose and proving that words, spoken true, can pry open history's locked doors. A trumpet note travels like a warm lamp in the desert night as Louis Armstrong plays for his wife in Egypt, 1961, and the music turns strangers into witnesses of tenderness. Stacks of handwritten code become a monument in 1969 as Margaret Hamilton and her MITE team hold Apollo's navigation software. And suddenly, the moon landing feels powered by ink, grit, and sleepless brilliance. Greece on royal hands breaks the fairy tale as young Elizabeth trains as a mechanic during World War II, around 1939, and duty becomes personal, proving leadership can begin with a wrench. A father returns to shadows that once protected life as Otto Frank revisits the attic in 1960. The Netherlands, and the silence speaks louder than footsteps, leaving us with one enduring ache. Remember. Rain falls, but compassion holds steady as an American soldier shelters a wounded Japanese boy during Saipan, July 1944, cradling him in a cockpit. And in war's chaos, humanity still finds room to breathe. One man boards the forbidden bus in Durban, 1986, and his quiet posture becomes a thunderclap against apartheid, proving that resistance can be as simple and as brave as taking a seat. A secret photograph catches power unmasked at 4:31 a.m., June 22, 1941, inside the Kremlin, as Stalin hears of invasion, and the saved image reminds us, even giants flinch. A tiny girl walks through a storm of hatred as Ruby Bridges enters a white school in 1960, the Deep South. And each step becomes a lesson, proving courage can come in small shoes. A family moment feels both ordinary and historic as Freddie Mercury stands with his mother in 1947, and the picture hints at a future voice the world will one day follow, loud and unafraid. A towering figure meets his opposite in September 1944 near Calais, France, as 7 feet 3 inches, Jacob Nacken surrenders to Canadian Corporal Bob Roberts, and the scene proves power can change hands instantly. Citizenship becomes a lifeboat in 1940 as Albert Einstein, his secretary Helen, and daughter Margaret take the oath in the United States, refusing Nazi Germany's pull and choosing safety without losing truth. Cameras flash and shame tries to hide as mobsters cover their faces at Al Capone's 1931 trial. And the courtroom air feels thick with consequence, reminding us notoriety always has an invoice. A soldier's homecoming turns into a wound as he returns to Frankfurt in 1946 and finds his family gone, and the empty rooms echo with the cruelest truth. Survival doesn't guarantee reunion. Night streets become a moving mercy in Istanbul, 1960s, as the drunk basket carrier hauls strangers home and the city reveals its odd tenderness, proving care can arrive in the unlikeliest job. 9 crowns share one frame on May 20, 1910, as Europe's kings pose together, unaware of the storms ahead, and the photograph becomes a calm before history's loudest breaking wave. A ship or train delivers more than bodies in 1945 as soldiers return from World War II, are carrying relief, grief, and stories too heavy for suitcases, and every embrace becomes a new kind of battlefield. A splash becomes a protest on June 8, 1958 in Florida, as 19-year-old David Isom breaks a segregated pool's color line and the water ripples with change. No official can drain away. An accusing finger cuts through denial as a Russian inmate identifies a cruel Nazi guard from Buchenwald, and the moment feels like justice taking its first breath, reminding us memory can testify. A single voice rises above factory noise in Cuba 1900s as a hired lector reads to cigar makers, turning labor into learning and proving that stories can feed people even when money cannot. An alley becomes a kingdom in Mount Clemens, Michigan, 1973. Aya's 5 friends play between brick and shadow, and the scene reminds us childhood needs little space to feel infinite. A snowman stands like a playful monument at Muir Glacier, Alaska, 1902, nicknamed the Father of the Glaciers, and the joke carries a warning: ice can vanish, but photographs keep the chill. A record deal feels like ignition in 1967 as Pink Floyd gather at EMI Manchester Square, and you can almost hear the future bending, proving that revolutions sometimes begin with signatures and nerves. A sleek car and sharp suit meet cold grandeur in the Swiss Alps, 1964, as Sean Connery films Goldfinger with the Aston Martin DB5, and the image seals a fantasy that still accelerates. An inventor insists on survival in the 1940s as Garrett Morgan demonstrates his safety hood, born from a 1914 patent, and the story proves innovation often arrives first as ignored hope. A gangster stands framed by headlines in Los Angeles 1950 as Mickey Cohen basks in notoriety, and the papers scream his name, reminding us fame without honor is still a kind of trap. Pixels become pilgrimage in New York 1980 as Atari's Space Invaders Championship draws over 10,000 competitors, and the crowd proves play can unite a nation, one button press at a time. Hope feels thin as paper during the Great Depression as job seekers line up with hats in hand. And every face tells the same question: will tomorrow finally open a door? A war's instant ends in fire in 1945 as a Japanese dive bomber, struck by the USS Hornet's anti-aircraft guns, falls toward the sea, and the image freezes the price of duty. Laughter meets discipline in 1965 near Moscow as Yuri Gagarin and Alexei Leonov welcome new cosmonauts at Star City in costume, and even space legends prove joy is part of training. A drill becomes a symbol of endurance around 1917 as a German army dentist works with steady hands, and the scene reminds us that even in war, pain still demands attention and care. A bride stands radiant in Norway around 1900, crowned with tradition and quiet pride. And the folk costume turns one personal vow into a cultural heartbeat, reminding us ceremonies carry whole communities. Color makes history feel close on June 6, 1944, as D-Day unfolds with ships, smoke, and sea, and the living hues insist this wasn't myth, it was men breathing under impossible pressure. High above storm-tossed water in 1920, sailors cling to rigging on the steel bark Garth's Nade, securing loose gaskets, and the image proves survival often depends on hands that refuse to let go. A wedding day in 1974 holds a soft electric calm as two lives step into shared weather, and the photograph reminds us that commitment is not a moment of perfection, but a promise to stay. Christmas becomes a moving miracle in Chicago, 1929, as a postman hauls sacks of letters through winter streets, and every envelope feels like a small torch, carried faithfully through the cold. Ink and bravery meet in a 1920s tattoo parlor where pain is chosen and stories become skin, and the scene reminds us identity is sometimes built one deliberate mark at a time. A man perches above stacked tires in Los Angeles, 1929, turning ordinary work into a daredevil silhouette, and the height makes you realize how easily life balances on routine risks. A young indigenous mother waits at a train station around 1930, holding a baby close, and the platform feels like a crossroads of futures, reminding us that travel often begins with quiet courage. A whaleboat meets its giant counterpart in the 1910s, and the ocean suddenly feels immense as humans lean into danger for livelihood, proving awe and fear can share the same horizon. Hard times tattoo themselves onto flesh in Oregon, August 1939, as an unemployed lumber worker heads to the bean harvest with his wife, and the number on his arm reads like a desperate prayer. A blizzard makes the city look conquered in March 1888, New York, as a young man stands by a shoveled corridor on Madison Avenue, and the snow teaches a fierce lesson. Nature sets terms. A drive-through becomes theater in Texas, 1940s, as men in shorts and cowboy boots serve women in cars, and the image captures a culture in motion, proving convenience can reshape manners. An Inuit husband warms his wife's hands in the 1890s, and the gesture glows against the cold, reminding us that love is often simplest when survival is hardest, and warmth becomes a shared language. Freedom arrives behind barbed wire in Germany, April 1945, as Dachau prisoners greet American liberators. and their raised arms turn the fence into a witness, proving hope can survive even steel. Two small brothers sit on an Arkansas porch in the 1930s. Great Depression days, and their stillness feels louder than words, reminding us childhood can be brave even when cupboards are empty. Two Victorian men proudly display their boots in a tintype from the 1870s, turning fashion into humor, and the stiff pose suggests a hidden wink, proving even old photos can laugh with you. A Christmas dinner becomes an act of endurance in 1936, near Smithfield, Iowa, at Earl Pauley's home, and the modest table shines like a beacon, reminding us scarcity cannot cancel celebration. With her husband at war in 1944, a mother leans over an engine, my hands steady with grease and resolve, and the scene proves homefront heroism is built from small repairs and stubborn love. War's aftermath becomes oddly tender around 1944 in Berlin, as a shoe bill saved from the zoo bombing lives in a keeper's bathroom, and the bird's calm presence whispers, "Care survives chaos." Barefoot joy cuts through poverty in East London, 1890s, as children grin despite worn clothes, and the image refuses pity, reminding us happiness can flare bright even in the dimmest streets. A leap into the unknown changes aviation forever on March 1, 1912, as Captain Albert Berry makes the first parachute jump from a plane, and the sky suddenly becomes a place humans can escape. The Hindenburg's routine feels almost peaceful on March 23. 1936, as engine mechanics shift mid-afternoon and the photograph becomes haunting, reminding us catastrophe often follows ordinary afternoons. A shocking mistake shakes confidence in 1903 at Leavenworth Prison, Kansas, as two inmates named William West appear nearly identical under the Bertillon system, and the case proves identity is more than measurements. Concrete becomes quiet revolution in Canada 1920, as the first ready-made pipe is developed to withstand immense pressure, and the innovation shows how unseen infrastructure can carry a nation forward. Deep underground, pit ponies pull coal carts through dust and darkness, their lives spent below the fields they were born for. And the image asks us to remember the cost paid by the voiceless. Safety meets sport in 1927 as a player wears a protective face mask and knee pads for basketball, and the odd gear hints at modern athletics to come, proving progress starts as something that looks strange. Massive logs ride skeleton trucks near Aberdeen around 1920, Coates Fordney Lumber Company, and the road feels fragile beneath the load, reminding us industry often moves forward on the edge of danger. Small bodies bear heavy work in early 1900s, Pennsylvania as breaker boys at Lehigh Valley Coal sort coal, and the photograph leaves one sharp truth: childhood was once mined like ore. Cobblestones rattle under Robert Fay's beer truck in New Bedford around 1912. Barrels bound for thirsty docks, and the scene smells of salt and lager, proving local labor had its own rituals. The Mona Lisa travels like a recovered legend in Florence, 1913, displayed after its theft, and the crowd's gaze feels like relief made visible, reminding us art can disappear, but wonder keeps searching. Coffee, sunlight, and conversation mingle in Paris, 1925, as women sit on a cafe terrace, and the ease in their posture feels revolutionary, proving freedom can look like an unhurried sip. A packed floor pulses with ambition at the New York Stock Exchange, 1908, where paper and shouting move fortunes, and the image warns us, markets are human storms pretending to be math. Two men, one white, one black, lead a civil rights march in the late 1950s, walking shoulder to shoulder, and their shared stride becomes a promise, proving change is strongest when carried together. Steam and stout shape the air at Guinness Brewery, Dublin, around 1910, as industry hums behind brick walls, and the scene reminds us that cities are built not just by landmarks, but by work. Ruins become resolve in Stalingrad, June 17, 1944, as rebuilding begins amid shattered stone, and every lifted beam feels like defiance, proving a city can be broken and still refuse to kneel. Steel lines stretch toward the future on March 1, 1935, as the San Francisco to Oakland Bay Bridge rises over Yerba Buena Island. And the aerial view reminds us, dreams sometimes need rivets. Before machines, bowling demanded sweat as pin spotters, often teenage boys, reset pins by hand, and players carried heavy balls themselves, proving entertainment once relied on human backs as much as skill. A log slides downhill like a captured avalanche in Fresno County, California, 1919, as men guide it with calculated fear, and the scene reminds us that nature's weight never negotiates, only obeys gravity. A bridge grows out of wilderness in British Columbia, 1880s, as crews build the Canadian Pacific Railway span at Mountain Creek, and the work feels like stitching continents, proving ambition can cross rivers. A dining car window frames displacement in Germany, 1946. As a soldier's wife and daughter sit first class while expellees ride boxcars outside, and the contrast lands hard, reminding us comfort can border tragedy. Grandeur waits for the wrecking ball as the old Cincinnati Library stands before demolition, 1874 to 1955, and the towering shelves feel like a cathedral of thought, reminding us progress sometimes burns its own memory. Tea and sun meet ancient stone in 1938 as tourists lounge atop the Great Pyramid of Giza, and the casual posture feels shocking beside eternity, proving humans can treat wonders like furniture. A tennis court becomes a smoky stage in the 1930s as women pose with cigarettes, blending sport and style, and the image captures an era's confidence, reminding us trends can age faster than photographs. A sidewalk turns into a runway in London, 1966, as girls protest for miniskirts, voices bright with certainty, and the moment proves that fashion can be politics, stitched into freedom with fearless hems. The skyline sparks to life as an electric bus glides through New York City in 1904, humming past crowds and storefronts. And for the riders, the future isn't a promise anymore. It's already rolling beneath them. Luxury takes flight when a Boeing 377 Stratocruiser serves cocktails made to order, the real bar glowing above the clouds, and somewhere between laughter and engine roar, travel becomes a brief floating kind of home. Wood and work fill the air in Seattle, 1939. As a man stands in the cedar lumber manufacturing yard, surrounded by stacked timber, and the quiet of his pose feels like a pause between hard-earned days. A hush settles over Rush Medical College in Chicago, 1900, as students face the lecture auditorium's steep rows, and in that disciplined silence, you can almost hear knowledge being built, one careful lesson at a time. In Merkur, Germany, 1945, American soldiers lean in to admire Monet's In the Conservatory, rescued from Nazi hiding in salt mines, and the moment proves art can survive darkness and still look back softly. A city reinvents its own space in New York around 1920, where an elevator parking lot stacks cars like vertical puzzles. And the scene whispers that modern life was already learning to climb upward. Routine turns quietly heroic in 1948 as a girl changemaker knits during slow moments at the Gilmore self-service gas station, and every loop of yarn feels like patience made visible in a restless world. Summer becomes a bright human tide on Sunday at Coney Island, 1949, where bodies and laughter crowd the shore, and the photograph reminds us that joy can be a public place anyone can enter. Vertigo becomes a daily companion as a New York construction worker walks a high girder around 1950, the streets far below, and the city's rise suddenly feels personal, built on balance, nerve, and trust. A late train turns into instant legend on October 22, 1895, as the Granville to Paris Express runs behind schedule, and the story reminds us how a few lost minutes can change a whole nation's memory. In 1943, a neat barn holds a strangely tender rhythm as a family of 6 milks a row of cows, focused on the work behind them, and the scene proves survival is often organized, ordinary, and shared. At an Indian air base in early 1945, an elephant hefts a gasoline drum into a supply plane bound for China via Burma, and the image stuns with one truth: war recruits every kind of strength. London's underground is born in grit and geometry as the Central Line takes shape in 1898, and the rare construction view makes you feel the city being hollowed out on purpose for millions of journeys ahead. Authority grows wheels in the 1930s as a police dog rides alert in a sidecar, scanning the street with calm focus, and the odd partnership reminds us duty can come with fur, loyalty, and sharp eyes. In the Soviet Union 1950, soldiers feed polar bears with condensed milk tins, and the scene feels both gentle and unsettling, as if kindness and control are sharing the same cold breath. A courtroom victory becomes a runway to change as Marlon DeWitt Green's 1963 Supreme Court win helps break airline discrimination, and his story proves that a single pilot can lift more than an aircraft. Discipline meets winter in the 1930s as Finnish cavalry train with practiced steadiness, and the scene carries a quiet warning. Strength isn't only loud or glamorous, sometimes it's simply prepared. Wonder turns into a doorway moment in St. Petersburg, Florida, 1940, as Robert Wadlow stands in a hotel lobby at 8 feet 11 inches, and the crowd's gaze reveals how awe can feel like respect. Hardship sits in plain daylight in Sequoia County, Oklahoma, 1939, where a poor mother and daughter rest outside a rough shelter, and their tired eyes insist on one message: endurance can be silent. A heartbeat hangs over the city in New York, 1920, as a daredevil balances atop a stack of chairs on a skyscraper rooftop, and the height makes courage look both thrilling and terrifyingly fragile. A simple puzzle becomes a gatekeeper in Ellis Island, New York, 1880s, as an immigrant woman is tested for entry, and the moment reminds us that a new life can hinge on someone else's definition of fit. A mechanical register clacks like a metronome in a Safeway supermarket in the 1960s as a cashier in uniform rings each item with practiced calm, and the scene shows modern order built from small motions. Elegance pauses by the water in New York, 1958, as 3 Scandinavian Airlines stewardesses stand in Navy uniforms and white gloves, and their poise makes early jet-age travel feel like a promise kept. Rural strength looks unshakable in Morganza, Louisiana, 1938, as a barefoot farm girl leans on a wooden wagon and her steady gaze turns simplicity into something powerful, not pitiful. In Detroit, Michigan, 1941, a woman shops for a corset at Crowley Milner while a clerk assists, and the fitting feels like a quiet negotiation between comfort, style, and the era's expectations. Tenant farming stands like a family portrait in Hale County, Alabama, 1936, as sharecroppers line up outside their wooden home, and the weathered boards behind them feel like a record of stubborn survival. Learning crowds into one room on the Lower East Side of New York, 1886, where children sit in a schoolroom packed with possibility, and the scene proves education has always been both a hope and a fight. A lens turns the street into history as a cameraman films over Baker Street, London, 1930, and the image hints that modern memory is often made by someone standing just out of frame. Order takes a new face in 1918 as Leola King, America's first female traffic cop, steps into the street, and her presence feels like a door opening, small at first, then impossible to close. Machines and ambition share cramped space in 1924 inside the original Harley-Davidson factory, where early motorcycles are born piece by piece, and the scene reminds us legends often begin as loud, oily experiments. A fleeting smile pierces a dark year in Amsterdam, 1942, as Anne Frank peeks from her family's flat, and the ordinary gesture becomes extraordinary, proof that youth keeps reaching for light. Steel becomes poetry in Paris, 1887, as the Eiffel Tower rises under construction, and the skeletal frame feels like a city, daring the sky to accept a new symbol. A hand-crank telephone bridges distance in the 1900s as a woman speaks into oak hardware, and the effort of each turn makes communication feel precious, like connection earned rather than assumed. Snow and smoke collide in Manhattan, 1912, as firefighters battle a blaze at the Equitable Life Building. And the stormy scene proves that catastrophe doesn't wait for clear weather to strike. Marchers push back against temptation and power during Prohibition in Chicago, 1920s, and their signs and footsteps reveal a nation arguing with itself, determined to legislate morality into being. Time softens a legend in 1977 with one of the last photos of Charlie Chaplin, and the quiet image feels like a curtain call where laughter lingers even after the spotlight fades. Play turns into grace in 1978 as Bob Marley kicks a soccer ball, and the moment shows a superstar returning to something simple, proving joy can stay grounded even when fame soars. A Child's Past holds a future voice in 1947 as Farrokh Bulsara poses with his nanny in Zanzibar, and the picture whispers that Freddie Mercury's thunder began in gentle, ordinary care. A marriage begins under bright attention in 1953 as John F. Kennedy and Jacqueline Bouvier stand together on their wedding day, and the photograph captures the calm before a life that would belong to history. Rough walls and shared meals define a miner's boarding house in Palmetto, California, 1860s, and the scene reminds us that gold rush dreams were often lived in tight quarters and stubborn hope. Traffic becomes theater in Philadelphia, 1922, as an officer operates a mechanical signal, and the clunky device marks a city learning to choreograph movement, proof that modern order had to be invented. Sparks fly like defiance as American women welders work during World War II, and the scene shows steel bending under determined hands, proving a home front can be as fierce as any battlefield. London in the 1890s feels both crowded and intimate, a city of soot, motion, and layered lives, and the image reminds us that modernity wasn't born clean. It was forged in daily bustle. Glassworkers steal a breath of daylight in St. Louis, 1910, during a noon break, and their tired posture carries a simple truth. Industry runs on bodies that need rest to keep going. In Connecticut, 1961, a salesman has motorized roller skates refueled like a tiny vehicle. And the odd scene captures a moment when the future looked playful, impractical, and wonderfully confident. A doorway frames a whole world in a 1920s family portrait as faces gather close in quiet unity, and the threshold behind them feels like a boundary between public life and private courage. Loss becomes lifelong in Washington County, Missouri, 1939, as a former TIF miner, now blind, stands with his son, and the image insists that work can take sight, but not dignity. Kindness stops the city in 1925 as an officer halts traffic for a cat carrying a kitten across the street. And the tiny procession becomes unforgettable proof that power can choose gentleness. History bends strangely with Abraham Lincoln in 1881, and the unsettling mismatch makes the image feel like a warning. Our memories are powerful, but they must also be honest to mean anything. Style meets mischief in 1997 as Robin Williams wears Oakley X-Metal Romeo sunglasses, and the look says it all. Humor can be armor, and charisma can turn anything into a story. A Filipino-American family poses in the Philippines, 1912, holding still for the camera's long gaze, and the portrait feels like a bridge between identities, proving belonging can span oceans. In New York, 1936, Salvador Dali stares into the modern world like it's a dream he intends to reshape. And the image reminds us that art sometimes arrives as a dare. Youth carries ambition in 1895 as a young Winston Churchill faces the camera, and the confident posture hints at storms ahead, proving that history often starts as a self-belief no one can verify yet. Chaos becomes comedy in 1993 as President Clinton's cat takes the White House press secretary's podium, and the moment reminds us that even power has a softer, absurd side. Clara B. Williams refuses to disappear when barred from the classroom, taking notes from the hallway until she graduates at 51, and her life proves that determination can outlast cruelty and rewrite outcomes. The stage lights burn bright in Las Vegas, 1969, as Elvis Presley commands the International Hotel, and the image feels like electricity captured, proof that performance can turn a room into a world. A grocery ad from the 1970s, like Crichton's, freezes everyday promises in bold print, and the ordinary design becomes a time machine, reminding us consumer life is also part of our history. In 1908, 22-year-old Victor McLaglen stands as Sharky the Boxer, and the fierce youth in his eyes hints at reinvention, proving some legends are built first with fists, then with film. A soldier holds up a jungle centipede in Vietnam, 1967, and the mix of curiosity and dread makes war feel oddly mundane, reminding us danger often shares space with boredom and bravado. A blast scar mars Dublin's skyline in 1966 as Nelson's column stands partly destroyed by the eye ray, and the broken stone shows how politics can reach up and tear symbols from the sky. St. Louis brews its identity in the 1880s as places like the Green Tree Brewery rise and fall, and the story reminds us that cities are shaped by countless short-lived ventures that still leave a taste behind. Bridge Street in Helena, Montana, sometime between the 1860s and 1880s, glows with the uneasy commerce of a red light district, and the scene proves boomtowns sold more than gold. They sold escape. Cairo feels grand and modern at once in 1935, as the entrance gate to Baron Edward Empam Palace in Heliopolis stands like a dream in stone, and the archway seems to invite history inside. Liberation enters Sarajevo on April 6, 1945, moving down a street that has carried many names, and the moment lands like a deep exhale, proving a city can survive occupation and still welcome dawn. In Macedonia 2001, ethnic Albanian fighters of the NLA stand tense and watchful, and the image reminds us that conflicts are lived by individuals first, long before they become headlines. On Wall Street in New York, November 27, 1915, I Paid Eugenic supporters hold signs against unfits, and the chilling display proves that prejudice can dress itself as science and call it progress. A calm smile hides a nation's nightmare in 1937 as Eva Braun sits by the Königssee, and the serene water becomes unsettling, reminding us that evil can coexist with ordinary leisure. A donut's missing center becomes its own small history between 1927 and 1948, and the quirky evolution reminds us that even snacks carry stories of invention, efficiency, and changing taste. Ancient treasure meets modern soil around 1939 at Sutton Hoo as excavators uncover an Anglo-Saxon ship burial, and the scene proves the past can reappear suddenly like a voice rising from the earth. In 1944, Polish women and children from Warsaw's Wola district are led away by German soldiers after the uprising's suppression, and the image lands like a bruise, proof that civilians often pay the cruelest price. A Poet's Face holds complicated weather in Venice, 1963, as Ezra Pound is photographed in later life, and the portrait reminds us that brilliance and damage can inhabit the same human frame. A mushroom cloud climbs above Nagasaki in 1945, just 20 minutes after the bomb, and the image feels like the sky being rewritten, leaving one unforgettable truth: some inventions end worlds in seconds. Power poses in July 1920 with a famous portrait of Vladimir Lenin, and the steady gaze hints at an era hardening into doctrine, reminding us how quickly revolutions can become systems. Chicago Stadium swells with anticipation in 1930 as fans pack the arena before a hockey game, and the crowd becomes a roaring organism, proving shared spectacle is its own kind of hunger. In 1960, Fidel Castro stands with Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir, and the meeting feels like ideas crossing borders in real time, reminding us politics and philosophy often share the same room. Harlem stretches into history in 1893 at Fifth Avenue and 118th Street, with Mount Morris Park's watchtower in view, and the streetscape proves neighborhoods are archives, even before they're celebrated. In 1944, fighters of the Ukrainian insurgent army stand in Volyn forests, half hidden by trees and uncertainty. And the scene shows how war often turns landscapes into both shelter and prison. Speed becomes national pride on January 27, 1924, in Chamonix, as Finnish skater Klas Thunberg competes at the first Winter Olympics, and the moment proves glory can be carved from ice and discipline. Across Petsamo, Finland, February 20, 1940, troops ski beside pack reindeer, and the surreal partnership feels like folklore under fire, reminding us survival adapts to whatever the land will give. Finland's war effort shows another face between 1941 and 1944, as women work the fields, keeping life moving under strain, and the image proves endurance isn't only fought, it's also grown. In Washington, D.C., 1914, fire brigade horses stand ready in the street, muscles tense beneath harness, and the scene reminds us that before engines ruled, courage often arrived on hooves. Cuban and Angolan history converges on November 10, 1975, during the Battle of Quifangondo, as commanders pose amid conflict, and the photograph shows how alliances can reshape far-off destinies. A new kind of evidence appears in France, 1847, with the first known photograph of an arrest, and the grainy moment marks a turning point when the camera begins to speak for the law. The moon feels suddenly real on July 20, 1969, as Neil Armstrong photographs Buzz Aldrin exiting Eagle, and the crisp scene proves humanity can step off Earth and still leave a footprint of wonder. Before dawn on St. Pierre Island, September 1967, fishermen launch their dory for cod, and the dim light makes the sea look endless, reminding us that livelihood often begins when the world is still asleep. Winter locks a fishing boat in place in British Columbia, 1916, its hull crusted with ice, and the frozen scene proves nature can turn working life into sculpture without asking permission. In Helsinki, 1934, flags of Ingria, Finland, and East Karelia hang at half-mast protesting NKVD deportations, and the quiet fabric speaks loudly, proof that mourning can be a form of resistance.